I'm excited to welcome our guest, Dr. Veena R. Howard. Together, we will explore the timeless wisdom of Mahatma Gandhi. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, Gandhi's teachings provide an anchor of peace, purpose, and clarity. Dr. Howard is an expert in Asian religious traditions and serves as a professor at California State University in Fresno. She also holds the prestigious Endowed Chair in Jain and Hindu Dharma and directs the M.K. Gandhi Center Inner Peace and Savodaya. She will tell me if I pronounced that wrong. She has written and edited 4 books and dozens of articles and brings a deep well of knowledge. She is also a TEDx speaker. Her unique gift is to translate Gandhi's wisdom into real-world lessons we can all apply to our lives. You might be surprised how much of Gandhi's wisdom has impacted American history. We have invited Dr. Howard to explore just how much Gandhi's ideas have quietly shaped our everyday lives. To discuss India and beyond the ancient traditions, let us give a warm Golden Gate Breakfast Club welcome to Dr. Veena Howard. Yay!
Hey. Thank you. There was one more birthday today, and that's birthday of Mahatma Gandhi. 155th birthday. Did you know that?
Nope.
That you invited me on Gandhi's 155th birthday, so there can be one more song. Happy birthday to Gandhi. It was very interesting to hear everyone's comments about the impact of Gandhi in today's world and on the United States. But some of the things we learned today that we didn't discuss. People said that they want to know about his humor. Somebody said he was shy. Someone said peace. Someone said, he led by personal example. All of which are true. But I'm going to take you and you will learn something very interesting today about Gandhi's life and his legacy. Did you know that Albert Einstein offered his highest regard for Gandhi at his 70th birthday? Now Gandhi's 155th birthday. What Einstein said about Gandhi, generations to come will scarce believe that such a one as this walked the earth in flesh and blood. He was amazed by Gandhi. The interesting point is that I would like to share with you, the Time magazine, when it comes to the man or the person of the year or the century, they were deciding who to give the person of the century recognition. It was given in the end to Albert Einstein, but Gandhi was runner-up. And Albert Einstein himself would have liked to have seen Gandhi being the person of the century. So it's quite interesting to see how the decisions are made because the science is rising at the end of 20th century. So did you know that Gandhi's stamps his figure has been on postage stamps for 100 plus countries? And recently I attended an exhibition and there were 140 countries stamps, which was news to me. And he has been on 3 times on the cover of Time magazine in the United States. His Holiness Dalai Lama calls Gandhi the most influential person of the 20th century. He gives the award to Gandhi, even though the Time magazine does not or did not. What Dalai Lama said, he was the most influential person of the 20th century with his idea of nonviolence, ahimsa. He took a 3,000-year-old Indian tradition of ahimsa, nonviolence, and karuna, compassion, and made it something living and relevant. This is very important quote. So ahimsa, nonviolence, compassion have been present in different traditions. But in Indian context, Jainism and Hinduism and Buddhism really uphold the value of ahimsa, nonviolence, and compassion as the important elements in their regimen to be a disciplined person, a spiritual person. And I think here, Dalai Lama is referring to Jainism, he's referring to Hinduism, and he's referring to Buddhism as well. In our own world, I call it Mahatma and the Minister, meeting of the minds. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was deeply influenced by Gandhi, as some of us know. What does he say? Gandhi's philosophy was the only morally and practically sound method open to oppress people in their struggle for freedom. Only morally and practically sound method. And we can discuss why is this only morally and practically sound? Not only just moral, it is practical. And who is the oppressed person? What kind of tools do they have? Gandhi is empowering everyone, not those who have guns, not those who have voices, not just those who have articulates, but the people who are powerless. But Gandhi makes them powerful. He wants to empower all people. So in this presentation, you will hear, I like Patricia's title for this talk today, Gandhi's Legacy Beyond India and Beyond Indian Traditions. So we really are talking about global Gandhi. And I edited this book called Gandhi's Global Legacy, Moral Methods and Moral Challenges, Modern Challenges. And I'll talk about in my presentation, what you will hear is the modern challenges, how one can really deploy Gandhian methods in today's world. And I think one of your participants did bring it up and said, why don't we have more Gandhian ideas in our today's world? So of course, we talked about accolades on Gandhi, but there were many critical appraisals of Gandhi as well. Gandhi had people critiqued Gandhi in his time and continue to offer criticisms of his method, his ways of being, his views on politics, religion, caste, gender, all kinds of things are critical appraisals as well. Just as we know any known human beings, any public human beings are subjected to both critical appraisals and accolades. But the one thing unique about Gandhi was he really engaged with his critics. He did not say, okay, like we see in today's world, I don't agree with you, so don't talk to me. Never, what do you call it, unfriend you from my Facebook or delete you. But here he says, come on, I want to speak with you because of your criticism, I'm going to learn how I can improve. He was constantly experimenting with himself, how to improve his own life. And we cannot improve ourselves unless someone critiques you. And Patricia and I talked about it a few days ago, and critiques happen, and then we learn from that. And then you will hear in this presentation Gandhi's lessons for today's world and confronting challenges in practicing nonviolence. So I really simplified my presentation since the last 4 days. So because I want to just stay very focused. So talk about criticism and constructive criticism and engaging with that is very, very important point. You may recognize this caption. Yes? Anyone? It is Steve Jobs. Yes? Brilliant ad. He came up with think different, rather think differently, if you put it proper English, but think different works. But the funny thing is here that Gandhi was not pro-technology. And he would not have, I don't know whether he used computer. I have no idea. But here he's sitting on a spinning wheel and he is on the face of the Apple computer. So why Gandhi is being used as a tool for advertising a very fancy technological machine is the how Gandhi is innovative, how Gandhi is creative, and how Gandhi thinks outside the box. So creative, innovative, and of course, they come with thinking outside the box, not thinking in the same parameters. The great human beings, the very influential human beings, think outside the box. So all how it began. Some of your participants said Gandhi was shy, Gandhi was not very tall, Gandhi was not a very good public speaker. All of it is correct. So Gandhi's direct encounter with social injustice and inequality all began in 1893 when Gandhi was kicked off a first-class compartment in South Africa because he was colored. Gandhi had been colored all his life, and he went to England to study law. He lived in a colonial context in India. But he never personally experienced that kind of humiliation, public humiliation, saying, you get out of this train because no colored people are allowed in first-class compartments. So that was a beginning of Gandhi's journey to confront structures of violence, not just simply colonialism. Colonialism is connected with racism, and racism, we know sexism in our world. When Gandhi was raised, so much sexism even continues today, sadly, and economic exploitation. So he just didn't address only one thing. He went into really think about the connection, the subtle connections among violence, colonialism, racism, sexism, and economic exploitation. And of course, social-based system. Then he went into religious bigotry, all kind of things. He doesn't take on what is not known, what we didn't hear, how broad his reach was. He was not simply a political leader. He was a social leader. He was a spiritual leader. He was thinking about various ways that these conditions of these humans can be improved. So at that night, when Gandhi sat on the train station all night, he was shocked. He was a lawyer, and he's been kicked out of a train. He didn't even reach to his overcoat, which was in his luggage. He was so disturbed. And what he sees, what he thinks, he writes about in his autobiography about that episode. So then I construct how all this works in my research. So first there is a problem. First, he doesn't think about at this stage gender problems and the sexism problem, economic exploitation. He's not thinking at this stage. He's just thinking about racism, colonial oppression. Then he says, something must be done. Well, he could have just walked out. He said, hey, we are not allowed to go in the first class compartment, which every Indian, which every colored person was doing in South Africa, right? He could have just said, fine, tomorrow I'll just buy the third class ticket. Sorry, I was in the first class compartment. He does the opposite. And then he says something, exploring existing solution. What's available for me? Do nothing, which his Indian friends in South Africa told him, come on, do your job. That's where things are. And he said, really? Do the things have to stay this way? And second was, people were using violence. People were, there were revolutionaries who were trying to fix this by blowing up things and getting angry. What he decides to do it doesn't come right away. It takes him over a decade to come up with the idea of what we call passive resistance or satyagraha. He says, let's thinking outside of the box to brainstorm new ideas. And finally, it's okay, we have ideas, but what is the idea? Nonviolent resistance. We call it satyagraha or civil disobedience. We do not cooperate with injustice. We always are, if we think about our lives today, we cooperate with the injustice. That's why injustice stays in place. We cooperate with injustice. That's why it stays in place. The systems, the structures of violence, they stay in place because we allow them. Where he turns to what he knows, what he has learned as a child, as growing up. He's very influenced by the teachings of Jainism. And one of your participants asked me, what is Jainism? Jainism in an ancient Indian tradition, over 3,000, we don't even know when it really began. There is no really historical records. And the one thing about Jainism, if you all want to know, is nonviolence is absolute in Jainism. It's a thousands of years old tradition. Not only nonviolence to humans, but non-human animals, to the earth, to the elements. So it's one of the religious traditions of India which elevates nonviolence. And he's from early childhood, he's been exposed to Jainism in where he's born and raised. And his mother goes to Jain monks and visits them, and he is very exposed to that way Jainism as well. And he has a teacher who is also Jain when he comes back from after his law degree. And he's influenced by the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a Hindu text. And the text, if you see on the right side on the image is a Jain image, where is Mahavira, Lord Mahavira was a monk, was a teacher of Jainism. If a snake comes in and he is not afraid of the snake, he gives shelter, protection to the snake, and snake doesn't bite him. So the whole idea is that if we are nonviolent toward people, people will be nonviolent toward us. If we are nonviolent toward beings, beings will be nonviolent to us. And in the bottom figure is from the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is set in the battlefield, and it's a conversation between Lord Krishna and his charioteer and the warrior Arjuna. And Arjuna feels doubt about his action as a warrior. And then Krishna says, do your duty without desiring the fruits of actions. You always focus on what can I do rather than saying, oh, how about if it doesn't work? How about I fail? How about if the result is this? Focus on your actions. And the third main influence on Gandhi is Sermon on the Mount. And he reads Sermon on the Mount and really goes, oh my goodness, all what I've been studying now, it can put in practice. Turning the other cheek, he calls it love force. That if we use love, we can have, it's not passively taking the slap from the other, but shaming the other. It really has written a lot about what's turning the other cheek mean. It really disarming the other with your compassion. So he puts it all together. It takes him a long time to come together with these ideas. Then he is also reading. He was an avid reader. He's reading Leo Tolstoy, he's reading John Ruskin and Henry David Thoreau. There's some of the example. I'm giving a very mini version of what his influences are. So Leo Tolstoy talks about, or he really focuses on pacifism, and Gandhi learns from him. John Ruskin, a British thinker, he learns about welfare for all. He calls it Sarvodaya. He translates it Sarvodaya right away in 1904, 1905, uplift of all. And Henry David Thoreau he writes essay on civil disobedience. So here we have connection with his global thinking. Not only he is looking at the Indian traditions, he's thinking globally. So as we are going in today's world, we cannot just see what is our toolbox is what's provided for us. Our toolbox is very broad when we look at the sources and resources for learning. And one of the ideas that becomes really, really influential is yogic practices. People do yoga in the United States, in the gyms. They do yoga in a YMCA. First time I came to the United States, he said, "Oh, we do yoga." I said, "You do yoga?" He said, "Yes, we do yoga in YMCA." I thought yoga only is done in the meditation setting. So it's quite interesting that how yoga has become popular. But here, yoga is not only just physical exercises, but self-discipline. Yoga really means yoking of the mind, body, and spirit. All three has to come together. And what he learns from it, the nonviolence and truth in all aspects of life, not simply just as we think in today's world as a political tools, but using as self-transformation, and also requires equality for all, like a yogi, like a person who is aligned will think that all beings are equal. And then control of all senses, the practice of brahmacharya, celibacy, fasting, and minimalistic lifestyle. So when Gandhi died, he had only few objects in his possession, as you see on the right, a bowl for eating, glasses, which is very classic, his famous glasses, his sandals that he made himself, and his watch. He was married to his watch. He loved his watch because he was very punctual. He just wanted to make sure that time was very, very important for us if we are committed to do something very important in our life. Other thing was the yoga was that he really inspired dignity of all labor. Not simply the people who have higher jobs, higher careers, but the scavenger, the one who cleans the rooms, the one who lifts the bricks, all people should be treated with respect. So some of you mentioned that Gandhi's transformation. After this package comes together, Gandhi emerges slowly as a different man. And he was extremely shy. He was afraid of public speaking. His marriage was arranged at age 13. All right, you must be surprised. We can talk about that. He took the vow of brahmacharya celibacy at age 36. He sought to practice simplicity and nonviolence in all aspects of life. He fasted 17 times in his life. Sorry. He was imprisoned 13 times. He walked over 10 kilometers each day. Despite his emaciated body, he rarely got sick. He was an avid reader and prolific writer. And again, everything, simply put, that is very epic life that we see. So after Gandhi reflects for over 12, 13 years in South Africa, and he sees his colonialism, the racist systems. He reflects on these reflections that I summarize. Violence breeds more violence, so we must not use violence. Violence perpetuates the cycle of hatred and retribution. Violence must be resisted, and violence is comprehensive. It's not just simply what we see is bombing and guns or swords. The violence can be racism, violence can be sexism, violence can be economic exploitation, and must be stopped. So what Gandhi's findings are, strength does not come from physical capacity, it comes from an indomitable will. The willpower is very important to get things done. We all know who are writers, we have been to schools, colleges, how much willpower it takes to get through these things. The second important point, so I have really crystallized all in for this 35-minute presentation. The principle of nonviolence necessitates complete abstention from exploitation in any form. I'm sure many of us have not heard about it. Complete abstention for exploitation in any form. So we can just, in our mind, think about what kinds of exploitations are happening in the world. Then he comes together with this idea. My goal is friendship with the world, and I can combine the greatest love with the greatest opposition to wrong. Bingo. Now he comes, okay, it doesn't mean I will not love my the one who is opposing me, or I don't agree with it, but I am going to use my love to do greatest opposition to whatever being done wrong. Not the person, but the system. Not the person, but the activity itself. So then we see is his influence reverberates all over the world, because his method began to make sense to people. People are reading his work. It's so amazing what I find. In 1920, people are going to India to visit Gandhi. And I see that people are traveling on the boats for months to visit him. So there's so much going on at that time, 1920, 1930, 1940s. And then we see the broader applications. We talked about Gandhi and MLK. Then Rosa Parks, of course, it's not just suddenly Rosa Parks said, I'm not going to stand up. She's been studying this. She's been working. She's been preparing for it. A lot of people misunderstand his not giving up her seat. It was a very deliberate event. Decision. And on the left is Reverend James Lawson. You may not know, he is the prominent civil rights leader who was a teacher to MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. And he was my mentor. He recently passed away, and I really will miss him. And we talked many, many, many times. I invited him to Fresno State twice, and he was a great leader. I'd never met Gandhi because I'm too young, but I met him and I felt I met Gandhi in a very powerful way. Then, of course, see in our own valley where I'm in Fresno and the San Joaquin Valley, United Farm Workers Movement, what Cesar Chavez said, nonviolence also has a big demand, the need to be creative. Gandhi described it as moral jujitsu. I love that phrase. And this is like, it's not just, okay, be nonviolent and take violence from others. No, it's a very creative way to defeat violence. Is not simply giving up, not simply taking beating, but finding a way to stop the beating in a strategic way. And National Geographic in 2019, with Gandhi's 105th birth anniversary, wrote how Mahatma Gandhi changed political protest. His nonviolent resistance helped end British rule in India and has influenced modern civil disobedience movements across the globe. It's interesting that the word is used, political protest. So my point is that you will learn that Gandhi was more than political protest. And I think we have just boxed him into little political protest because that was a very important part of his life. But as you will learn, his ideas are far-reaching. So we see these Gandhi's relevance in today's world beyond cliches and slogans. That's what I write about. Gandhi says relax. Gandhi will never say relax. I'm sorry, that's not correct. And Gandhi says peace. No, yes, it's okay to say peace, but he was there to work for peace. And of course, and my students send me, one of my students, Yoda Gandhi, that he is kind of a force awakens. All my young students appreciate that. So my questions are Gandhi's principles of nonviolence relevant for today? In what specific ways Gandhi can help us with the problems of distrust, divisions, economic inequality, wars, and environmental crisis? All the list goes on. Because we have now, the challenges are similar, but are different now. It's broader, it's more in a way that they have become more global. So what you will hear in the next few slides is the practicing nonviolence ahimsa in current world and modern day challenges. The first challenge that people ask me this question, how to keep focus when facing many forms of injustice. So Gandhi had colonialism, Dr. King and Reverend Lawson had racism, segregation. How about now? We have so many problems in today's world. We are just, where do we go? Where do we start? Because the monster now has so many heads, it is harder to expose the evil than when the villain was segregationist laws in the South. So this was the article in 2022. And the problem is, yes, our students get very overwhelmed. We are very overwhelmed. Where to address the issue? So I'm going to give answers with Gandhi's point of view. You will hear Gandhi's point of view. Focus on one issue at a time. But you can relate that issue to other issues, just like he did, colonialism, racism, sexism. You can relate it, but you have to focus it one at a time because they all are related. Women's issue, the environment issue, racism, they all are related. But we have to focus on one at a time. Otherwise, we'll get overwhelmed. Second problem is the what they call it, selectivism. Do you know that term? Maybe not. It's finger activism, social media activism. So it's that how to transform performative and uniform activism through social media into meaningful action. How do we do that? Because some people say, oh, I posted this, I deleted them as a friend, so I'm okay. There's a lot more needed for today's world. According to Gandhi, nonviolence must be planned and mobilized as a fight. It's not just raising your voice. It requires sacrifice. Training, different tools, civil disobedience, non-cooperation, protests, all kinds of tools are available. Willingness to sacrifice, belief in the law of love, power of compassion, and the religion of humanity. I think I messed up the numbers. Practicing nonviolence in the current world, how to address divisions and differences among fellow community members. We know what's happening in today's world. We don't need to spell that out. The solution is, Gandhi would say, difference of opinion must not mean hostility. Difference of opinion must not mean hostility. We can be different, but how do we solve difference? I call it nonviolence in 3D. Nonviolence is dynamic. This is my invention. So I just made it up this with the 3Ds because it starts with 3Ds and we can see it's because it's dynamic, it's moving. Dialogue. We must speak with the people who disagree with. And if we think we are right, try to convince them. And dissent. Is okay to dissent the one we don't agree. Also, if somebody have a dissenting opinion about us, we should listen to them. And difference. We should appreciate the difference. Rather than saying be same, we all should similar, we cannot be. So we should have the respect for difference because we are not all the same. We will have different opinions. That's what democracies are created. Finally, I'm to give you a couple of food for thought. Is the violence is insidious and pervasive. What is poverty but a passive form of violence, Gandhi says? Poverty, how many of us think about poverty as a passive form of violence. Hate and distrust is a form of violence. Gender violence, environmental exploitation is violence. Many systems of exploitation, according to Gandhi, not simply racism, not simply colonialism. We see that violence appears in many ways. So now there are many expressions of nonviolence that beyond political protest. We saw that National Geographic calls it about political protest, but I think one of your participants talked about power of thoughts. Her name, I think Tana. So it's power of thoughts that was very, very important for Gandhi. But he said the nonviolence is forgiveness. Forgiveness is not just for me, the other, but for me also, for us, because how I feel inside is very, very important. In all religious traditions,
Vav.
so forgiveness is not only in religious traditions, in spiritual traditions, it's part of psychological. Lately, a lot of studies are coming up, the effects of forgiveness on our mental health, physical health, emotional health. So it is a very, very important tool for us. Uplift of all, not just the few, not just our own kind. We have to think in the direction of all, everyone, what Gandhi would call it sarvodaya. That's what Patricia, you're asking, what is sarvodaya? Sarva means all, udaya is rising up. Everyone, can you imagine when everyone is rising up? Not equal in a way, like we have different capacities, we have different capabilities, but everyone is doing their own ways, rising up, making conditions, inner peace. And again, what Tana's point, a lot of you said, inner peace. Thinking about thoughts. How am I feeling inside? Not just outside. Gandhi's writing shows that he did a lot of inner work, leading by example. We all know that when we do the right thing, people follow us. Our children pay attention, our colleagues pay attention, our students pay attention, our community pays attention, not just what we are saying. Nowadays in the politics, we say, let's do facts check all the time. It's like, why are we doing facts check when shouldn't we be speaking truth? Should we speaking, we know that you said that a few days ago, this one is going to replay. What is going on in today's world? It's just unbelievable that we are allowing this to have people say and then contradict, people say and then contradict. And where is the principle? Standing up for the right, not necessarily a political protest, but in small situations when nobody's watching. In a meeting room, in a grocery store, in a simple, doesn't have to be Gandhian mega something, splash, because the small changes bring big changes. And I think we forget that. Use of local products, and we can do that. And I think as much as we can. I know right now this strike is, looming strike is causing so much anxiety, right? And so I think we think about the effect of the not using local products and how we saw during the COVID time that how we are affected. And so how our society can. Gandhi was thinking way ahead of his time, and he knew that use of local products will also bring sustainability, ecological consciousness. He was thinking about those things, reducing waste. He was so much into. If I had time, I can really do presentation on each one of the ideas. One pencil, his niece lost this little pencil, and at night, and he goes, "Where is the pencil?" He said, "I don't know, I dropped somewhere in the woods." And he goes, "Just go find the pencil. You can't just drop the pencil. Send her back." And people call him just he was cruel but that's what he was eccentric, of course. And so he pays attention to every little minute details that we just go, okay, it's all right. Care for the environment. And his life of simplicity had spun his own
I can't get the.
All right. So finally, this is a symbol of Sarvodaya for our Gandhi Center at Fresno State. I helped create with our graphics team. Team meaning the two hands, and the wheel is spinning wheel, but also wheel of life, also wheel of Buddha's path to knowledge. And the wheel of life only turns, and uplift of only happens when we are come together, all together. And Sarvodaya means uplift of all. And the flame within us, no matter what happens, we have to keep our flame of love, kindness, gratitude, care shining, and be positive. Otherwise, we will get depressed. So a community dedicated to nonviolence becomes a movement. A family, a community dedicated to nonviolence becomes a movement. And that's mine. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And I want to thank Patricia, and thank you all of you for your listening. Thank you to our students who are here. Many of students are here, so thank you.
Well, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, my friend Rich Ermlich, that I will be with in Pittsburgh, popped in to listen, and your students. Now, the first question, and I told you I was going to ask this, you know, Gandhi got married at 13, and you mentioned in the presentation it was arranged. You also told me that is it 90% of marriages in India, even now, even your sisters, their marriages are still arranged. Can you make some comments about that?
Yes, indeed. Because the opportunities there, the idea of, we call it love marriage versus arranged marriage. Whatever happens in America is called love marriage. But I think the success rate of marriage in India is over 95%. So let's go figure this out. You know, here we have love marriage, and our divorce rate is what, 50% at least? And so it's kind of interesting combination. So what the whole tradition was, that not only just a young man or young woman's needs were taken into account, yes, but also how their marriages will last. So they saw family, they saw parents saw education. Not, I'm talking about the child marriages. Those were, Gandhi abhorred child marriages. That was outlawed long time ago. Those were, he said, is the really crime against these young people, what you're doing to them. Because that's, he was so against it. And there are laws now that we cannot have, like, I think 18 years of age. But the whole idea is that in India, I have, there are 7 brothers, sisters. 6 of them are married, arranged marriage. Mother picked girls and boys for them, and they're okay, and they're happy. And then that's the funny thing, that their kids, all very educated, have arranged marriages. All my nieces and nephews, most of them, one didn't. So it's changing a little now in the cities, but in the rural areas, and still there's the arranged marriages. But
well, you know, it's interesting. One of my most successful, well-known friends in the speaking world came from Lebanon. He came with $50. I had 500. He's a multi-millionaire. I obviously had $450 too much. I was not hungry enough. But when he was 28, he said to me, it was time to get married. My brother had a very successful marriage. So I called her father and said, may I marry your younger daughter? So this was, you know, this is a very Americanized person. So Colin Hussey has his hand raised. So for your first question.
So, yeah, I wanted to corroborate. I heard this, that Gandhi said this, and I just, want to make sure it's true or not. He said that if he were dealing with anybody other than the British, he would not have succeeded.
He did not say that.
Okay.
He thought he will be say the opposite, as a matter of fact. he believed that people who have love in their hearts, has to be some kind of love in your heart, that you can move authority, move a person, move a system, then the love force will work, truth force work in every time. He says we have not given chance to truth force, love force, nonviolence. We become too hasty. We give up too fast because it is not an expedient way to do things. It took Gandhi 60 years, 40, 50 years to get there. Dr. King, the whole movement, he took so long, since people were writing in 20s to Gandhi about civil rights issues, the segregation issues in America. It took 40 years, 35, 40 years. But the problem happens is this, Colin, is that we think nonviolence can be used in acute situations. It is not for acute situations. If somebody has a gun and shooting at somebody, you can't do nonviolence that time. Nonviolence is misunderstood. It is a way of life, building systems. Nothing happens immediately. Everything happens. When we look at people that even the school shootings, or this person had a disturbed childhood, or this person had record of this, or there's a buildup happens. What nonviolence does is interventionist, that you intervene. I call it disrupt wars before they erupt. Disrupt them before. We have many, many chances to do that. As if you look at now, all of us, the history of humanity, many, many chances. The things don't just happen one day. We are creatures of our habits. We are creatures of our circumstances. But when mistake comes when people think nonviolence is in acute situations, or we can just fix it now because somebody's attacking my house and I can be just, okay, no. Yeah. It's supposed, and he has answers for that as well. That's why he wants us to dismantle violence and structures of our systems.
That's well, one just little follow-up, because it's like the big challenge is then how do you deal with people who are not ashamed of being violent? So yeah, because turning the other cheek is to get the other person to be ashamed of their act. But for those who are not ashamed of being violent at all, when you think of somebody like Mao Zedong or Hitler or Stalin, or people who are just absolutely proud, practically proud of their brutality, that is a huge. How do you deal with a challenge like that?
Right, and I think even those people are in power because of us. How did British came in power? How did British came in power? Indians allowed them to be in power. Indian soldiers were in the British Army. What was happening in Germany? One person couldn't do anything. Yes, he was authoritarian, right? If the people consent, it's not necessarily the outside people come. We are the one. If someone is not right in my family or my community, how do you deal with that? I think this is such a comprehensive, and we think about when we say about Hitler too. My friend, Professor Douglas Allen, will be giving a talk in 15 minutes in Maine, University of Maine. So I'll be going to after our session. And he talks about that. Even the power of Hitler didn't happen in 1 year, 1 to 5 years. It took years before he became, people ignored him. People didn't think he could be a threat. And I think if we look at our conditions in today's world, or anywhere, it is the result of our not paying attention to that. It's like having any illness, generally, not always, generally starts with a small illness, some kind of small thing, and we just ignore it. And doctor says, you need to take care of it. It's, nothing's going to happen to me. Oh no, I would really want you to not ignore this. health issue. No, I think nobody's in my family history, I'll be fine. And then it can become big. So same thing, the same principle applies for the ills anywhere. What he believed that more people are good in the world than they're bad. Lot more are good. Lot more have love in their hearts. Lot more have than those examples. You can give 5 examples, and now you have 6.5, 7 billion people in the world. There are people who are helping on the front lines, the people who are feeding people right now, the people who are showing up to that. So we have, but he says that yes to you, Colin, but also there is so much more goodness that if we can really mobilize that goodness, what he says that when the light shines, the darkness cannot stay. But the light has to shine. But we need more people then, right? That's why it's a mass mobilization. That's why it is media use. Even though he didn't like technology, he was one of the biggest advertiser. He was a media user. He wrote every day 500 words. He was publishing papers, journals in South Africa in 4 languages: Hindi, Tamil, English, and Gujarati, 4 languages. He was translating overnight, writing it, having translated and putting in. So it doesn't require just simply sitting and say peace. It requires hard work and required sacrifice as well. I mean, the man got killed, right? So it requires all. So it's a very, it is not an acute solution. It's not for the solution of acute problems.
Janelle Barlow wanted me to tell you, fabulous presentation. She did have to take her husband to emergency, but she had to leave a few minutes away. And one of our members is the only one in the club who did have an arranged marriage. Summer, I don't know if you want to unmute and tell us. It was a marriage. It is not a marriage now. So
Yeah.
not everyone. Okay.
Oh yeah. Hi Patricia.
Hello.
Good, so good
Yes.
seeing you. So hi Veena. I'm originally from India, but I was raised in the Middle East. But having said that, my parents did find a match for me. I was a lot younger, and well, it didn't work out. We did our best, but I do know of a lot of people who've had arranged marriages, and it's worked out really well. Like my sister, for instance, she's older than me, more responsible, and she did not have an arranged marriage. But I think my parents wanted me to be a lot more, I don't know, maybe disciplined, responsible. I don't know what it was, but it was just in me to like listen to them, just thinking, they had the best for me, best in mind, and I just went with it. But I realized that we came from such different worlds, me and my ex-husband. But I made peace with it after, we went our separate ways, and yeah. But will I do that again? I don't think so. Been there, done that. But there are people though who have more successful outcomes with arranged marriages, I guess what I want to say.
All right. Good. And thank you, Summer. And Raja, did I pronounce that right? One of your guests has a question, and then Gordon Hill.
So Raja is
Veena.
my colleague, and he's a colleague who joined us at Fresno State, and he's a scholar of Jainism and philosophy, and it's lovely to have him at Fresno State. So go ahead.
Good.
Thank you, Veena. I have a brief question. I need to run off to class in a couple of minutes, but one brief question. When Tolstoy and Gandhi had their interaction, and Gandhi asked him to publish the letter to a Hindu that he had written before, and in which he had advocated for nonviolence. Tolstoy had also talked about reincarnation. Gandhi asked Tolstoy to remove his apprehensions or his criticism against reincarnation, because Gandhi said that the belief in reincarnation was what made it easier for many of the nonviolent resistors in South Africa to actually go through with what must have been a grueling experience, and often one that ruined them financially and their lives. So I was just, I mean, do you think that satyagraha is something that is particularly a particularly efficient tool in the context of this sort of metaphysical background that we see in the Indian context, that this is sort of how it could develop so well there? And what do we tell someone whom we are asking to suffer in the same way that people in South Africa say who lacks this metaphysical background? Thank you.
Excellent question. And we will talk about that. For this group, I'm going to very simplify it because we don't have time and you have to go to class. That was my question, whether we need some kind of spiritual, metaphysical underpinning to use and be successful in the method of satyagraha. So there is so much sacrifices happening. And if in the Indian context, Jains, Sikhs, Hindus, Buddhists, all of them are believing in reincarnation, and there could be a better life. So Gandhi said, how about Christianity? Christianity does not have reincarnation, but Christianity, turning the other cheek, sacrificing yourself for love, caring for others, pacifism. Tolstoy was himself not believing in reincarnation. So reincarnation is not as big a problem as your in underpinning point metaphysics or spiritual underpinning. So I asked Reverend James Lawson, who was 95 when he passed away. So I've known him since to 2017. So for a long time, I got him and many, many, many conversations. I asked him that question. I said, Reverend Lawson, is it possible to be a secular and non-believer and use this moral force? And he says, well, in our tradition, in our movement, we were all mobilized, we were organized in the church. That's what he said to me. The church songs, the hymnals, and the African spirituals, they were really important part of our, Jesus sacrificed so we can also sacrifice. But then I study more. Gandhi's movement, Gandhi's ideas have been used in Philippines, in Chile, I went to Singapore. I met people who have used Gandhian methods. So all over the world has been this film called A Force More Powerful. It charts different places, Gandhi's, and people were not spiritual. So one can use as using spirituality can help when you sacrifice, but you can use as a tool, like a protest, civil disobedience, without thinking about, sorry. I don't like talking in the morning. That's not. I miss my meditations or walk. So I think it's the idea that, so there is a spiritual underpinning that can give us more solace to, oh, I'm doing for the higher good. But that higher good can be serving the humanity. So a secular person can stand up for, or I would call it, Gandhi called it atheist, even non-believers. They believe in truth. They believe in some things. They're not believer. They believe in life. So if you can practice satyagraha with trust in humanity. And I think I had a slide that I took it out because of time. I said, how about you do without faith? Faith in humanity, the faith in that every life matters, faith in that injustice is not okay, faith in love for all beings. So there are ways that one can, so Gandhian movement, just to clarify, were not all Hindus. They were Muslims, they were men, they were untouchables, they were different castes. Christians were really supportive of Gandhi. Muslim, the one Frontier Gandhi who was in Afghanistan, this Muslim, Afghani tall man, he was so nonviolent. He created 100,000 army in Islamic army of nonviolence in Afghanistan. So there is so much more to Gandhi's method because the truth is in the center, not religion. The truth is we all can go behind it, not necessarily God, but if he translated God as truth. He used to say truth is God. He said God is truth. He said truth is God. If you are on the side of right, side of truth, side of love, side of kindness, it's okay to sacrifice yourself. Go for it. Important that we take care of each other.